This program is made possible by the loyal financial support of the friends and partners of Family Policy Institute.
You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world.
Good evening and welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, my guest of honor on the program is Graham Yoko, the Chief Executive Officer of Accelerated Education Enterprises based in KZN. Graham, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Errol. Always a privilege and an honor to be with you, and good evening to the viewers as well.
Thank you very much. It's been a long time since I've spoken to you about educational matters, and we've had the pandemic and the lockdowns and all kinds of things happening. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. You have a number of schools all over the country and over the world, accelerated education enterprises. How have you guys managed with all the stop-starts, the lockdowns, and all of those kind of things?
Earl, I must say that, when March 2020 came, it caught everybody by surprise. And as much as we thought we were ready for whatever it would throw at us, it definitely created some challenges. Our distribution center in Durban was closed for those initial 6 weeks, I believe it was. And so it was quite challenging from that perspective. But just for clarification, the schools that we service are independently operated in South Africa and also the rest of Africa. We have roughly about 700 schools that we supply educational materials to, but more specifically, biblically based educational materials that weave the Word of God into the subjects of science and maths and English and everything else. So what we have found is that during this time, because of the fact that our program is individualized, is that schools were able to, once they got the materials, were able to provide parents and students or learners with those materials to take back home. And they were able to work at home independently. And we had to do some fancy footwork from the school's perspective to be able to equip them to serve as a virtual school. And I think education in general has had to go through a pretty significant metamorphosis as a result of COVID. But the fact that we were individualized made it so much easier for students to continue and then get assistance from the teachers as well.
Graham, the schooling it's spiritual based, it's value based. Do you think that has been a great help and benefit to children during this time, pandemic and the lockdowns?
I definitely do feel that it's been a blessing to the children and also to parents who all of a sudden have had to get involved with the education of their children, had to work through those materials with them. And we've been getting reports back from parents who've just, really praised the process that the students have been going through and the fact that they've been able to interact with them, bringing things into perspective from a biblical worldview, as opposed to just this is a crisis or a pandemic and we're in trouble. The fact that God is in control, that God is able to see us through and just assist the students to understand the fact that God is in control in the midst of this has been a very anchoring component of the education as well. I think for many students having to work at home on their own, it's been a challenge, and I think for parents as well, having to suddenly become the teachers, the fact that the materials are self-instructional and they bring in the values of God's word has been invaluable to families and to students alike.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in these times, Graham, I've heard horror stories of so many children having to go online because of the pandemic and get their education tuition through the online platforms, but how they've been exposed to all kinds of other things as a result of this. And we have predators targeting young children because they know they're online at a time like this. So we thank God for the values based in the in the schools that you associated with? Because I know they get the right kind of teaching, they get the right kind of values to kind of navigate through all of these challenges that children had to face during this past 18 months. And this brings me to one of the issues that we've all been grappling with, and it's become a controversial topic in South Africa, and that is comprehensive sexuality education. It's been in the mainstream media last year quite a lot. This year as well, the content, some of the stuff that people are worried about, both parents and educators. And so we thank God that this alternative program has been launched called Smart Choices, which is a values-based sexuality education curriculum that teaches children the right values and prepares them for everything they're facing in society today. And the good news is that Accelerated Education Enterprises has partnered with the developer of Smart Choices, Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer. And this is such great news for parents and educators all over this country, because Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer is an educator, and she's developed all the programs and all the literature, but she doesn't have organizational or organization behind her to get the books printed and get everything out of schools. And Accelerated Education Enterprises come in and done that. So maybe, Graham, you can tell us why you've done that and a little bit about how you're going to work with her to get this wonderful program out to children, to homes, and to schools all over the country.
Yeah, Errol, the vision of Accelerated Education Enterprises is to see an educated Africa where everybody has the opportunity to fulfill their God-given potential and destiny. And Psalm 139 speaks very clearly about that God wrote a book about each one of us before we live one day of them. And he wrote them down, and that's been his plan for each person's life. But when life happens, it often deters us or distracts us from God's plan for our lives. And one of the areas that we feel so strongly about at AE is the fact that the whole issue of sexuality education has been distorted, and it brings about a negative impact in the lives of young people who are trying to pursue God's plan and purpose for their lives. And so you were involved in the initial meetings that we had with Dr. Darlene and also some of the other suppliers, where we said, what can we do together as an organization or as organizations to bring about an alternative? And we met Dr. Darlene for the first time at that point, and really didn't give it much more thought because we're a distribution organization. This wasn't really our area of expertise. But Dr. Darlene went away and made sure that the materials and the full course was compliant with the CAPS process that is required in South Africa. And when she had done that, she approached us and said, I've done the educational work or the academic part of it, but I have a challenge in distributing it and getting it out to schools and parents that might need it out there. And we just sensed that, this is the facility that God has given us, and that we could see a partnership working very well, where she would take care of the academic credibility of the program, but that we would be the channel that the Lord would use to be able to distribute those materials, not only here in South Africa, but throughout Africa as well. And so it's been an exciting journey for us as we've sort of trialed the process together with Dr. Darlene. And I'm excited to say that we now have everything in place to begin distributing to schools that choose to use the Smart Choices program.
Yeah, Graham, you've went through the program. You've got an overview of it. What is your, as a person involved with education and especially values-based education for so many years, what is your view of the Smart Choices program?
I think that the critics would want to downplay comprehensive sexual education, and anybody that has any opposition to it would be seen as a prude or as somebody that's not forward thinking and so on. And so I have no objection to the reality that sexuality education needs to take place. But as I've gone through the Smart Choices materials and also spent time with Dr. Darlene as we've interacted from time to time, I've realized that it goes beyond sexuality education and becomes sex education. The available programs that are out there and that the Department of Basic Education is promoting provides sexual education and sex education, which is something completely different to wholesome sexuality education. And so as I've looked at the materials, it goes beyond just the biological or the physiological realities of sexual relations. And it now provides the student with an understanding of how God intended sex to be and their particular sexuality and identity that, again, is in just so clearly detailed in Psalm 139, that God created us for a specific purpose, and he's not confused. He wasn't confused when he created us. He created us male and female, and he has a purpose and a plan for us. And so I've seen that without it becoming a Bible-bashing process, Dr. Darlene has very elegantly put together this program that allows people to live wholesomely while also considering their personal sexuality without it becoming something sordid or untoward that would have a negative effect on children.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you, Graham. I'm not an educator, but when I went through the materials, I was so pleased. I could just see the values, the love, the empathy in the programs, because she understands children and right. The need. She understands the brokenness and the abuse and all those kind of things. And she's developed this program over I think it's 24 or 25 years, not knowing about comprehensive sexuality education when she started out, but how God used this woman to develop an alternative to what is coming into our country that we know is harmful. So, Graham, I want to talk more about comprehensive sexuality education and about values education in general in South Africa and the need for that as we see what is happening in our country. But we've run out of time, going to go for a break. So don't go away. More with Graham Yoko after the break. Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Graham Yoko, the Chief Executive Officer of Accelerated Education Enterprises based in KZN, and they've got schools all over the country and all over the world where they provide education materials to many, many schools. And now they've partnered with Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer, the developer of the Smart Choices, Smart Life sexuality education curriculum that so many people are talking about and our schools need. So, Graham, welcome back. And, again, I want to commend you for getting behind Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer because, she's an educator. She's a woman on her own. Did great work with the development of this program, but obviously doesn't have the logistical and organizational network you have, and you've come in partnership with her to help her get it out. Now, Graham, if you could maybe just briefly tell us your concerns with comprehensive sexuality education from what you've seen and heard, just the information that you've gathered.
Errol, I think, again, that the challenge that we have, and Dr. Darlene brings this out so clearly in her program, is that sexuality education is a very specialized field. It's not just something that you can dump on an educator and hope that they would correctly communicate it, even with scripted lesson plans and everything else. The bottom line is that there is an underlying message that's coming through amidst the comprehensive sexuality education. And our concern is really who is going to be the presenter of that and what is their bias as far as the issue of comprehensive sexuality education is concerned. That's where we've really appreciated the training that Dr. Darlene has also developed that goes alongside the educator guide and also the learner workbook. And that provides the educator with the sensitivity and the ability to be able to communicate the aspects of comprehensive sexuality education in a way that's not harmful to the child.
Yeah, Graham, if I can just come in there, I think you're raising a very important point, because the Anju Motshekga, the Minister of Basic Education, made a presentation to Parliament on teen pregnancies in South Africa. So we have a crisis currently in South Africa where tens of thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, Mary Sucker of the ACDP sent me the presentation. I've read through part of it. But one of the things that stood out for me is they said 1 million children over the past 10 years, I think it was, 1 million children in schools have become pregnant, and a percentage of that couldn't go back to school as a result of that and finish their education. One of the numbers that jumped out at me is over 14,000 children in schools, 14,000 of the children in schools that got pregnant and couldn't go back to school was between the ages of 10 and 14. 10 wow. And 14. And now what we've seen from what has been reported in the media is that a number of those children getting pregnant is from teachers. Teachers impregnating children in their classrooms. And the ages start at 10. 10 and 14 is 14,000. And there's tens of thousands more over that age. So clearly, Graham, we have a massive problem in this country, a devastating problem in this country. And the Minister of Education is saying the solution to that is comprehensive sexuality education. That's what they're selling. And UNESCO, the UN agency behind this, they're saying, no, that will solve the problem. Where everybody else and all the independent investigations and research that's been done on CSE worldwide is saying, no, that fuels the fire. You're sexualizing children with the kind of teaching and the content in CSE. And here's the big problem, and I want you to comment on this, Graham, is that if the teachers are sexually abusing children, they're now going to be given this comprehensive sexuality education program that's got a lot of pornographic images in it. It's sexualizing children. It's telling children how to masturbate and how to get sexual pleasure, because even the head of the Department of Education, the general guy, he said that, CSE is not a responsibility or health kind of focused program. It is a sexual rights program. It's sexual rights, not sexual responsibility or sexual health. So that is a huge distinction. But your comment on teachers now taking this program with all the controversy around it and being the one tasked with teaching children sexuality education.
Yeah, Errol, it would be like putting thieves in charge of the Reserve Bank.
Absolutely.
Because they're the very suspects of what we're trying to avoid with the children. And you hit the nail on the head, is that if you've got teachers who are already impregnating students at school, are now going to be the ones that are going to present these lessons. I really question the sincerity with which they would do that, or the integrity with which they would do that, because they would have generated these type of relationships with students already. So it's again something that I am very passionate about, that the responsibility for sexuality education rests with the parent, and the parent needs to step up to the plate. Very often parents are nervous to talk about the issues of sex or the birds and the bees and so on, because when we were growing up, that was something that you didn't really talk about. But it's so prevalent in society today that if parents don't speak up about it, then somebody else will. And I heard a statistic many years ago that less than 1% of church-going or Christian young people learnt about sex from their parents. They usually learnt about it from other sources, which are usually unwholesome. And so here is an opportunity and a necessity for parents to step up, not only to take the responsibility for sexual education or sexuality education, but also to stand up and say no to what is happening in the schools. The state does not own the children.
Correct.
Children were given to the parents by God, and they are a responsibility of the parents. And the state wasn't around when they needed their nappies changed. The state wasn't around at 4 o'clock in the morning when they wouldn't sleep. So for the state to now suddenly step up and say it's now our responsibility, it's also the responsibility of the parent to step up and say no, it's this far and no further. And what the Smart Choices program provides is not only in a school, but for parents. And I would encourage parents to engage with Dr. Darlene and do the basic training course, because it's going to equip the parent with the ability to be able to deal with these situations as they come home. We can't stop what our young people are going to be exposed to, but we can plan our responses in line with God's word. And so I shudder to think what would happen if this responsibility was left in the hand of reprobates who are parading as teachers and are then going to be the ones that are disseminating that and giving it to the students. We're headed for a disaster if that takes place.
Absolutely. And of course, we must make the point there are thousands of good teachers doing a good job teaching
You're
children,
right.
taking care of children. But there are many that are abusing children, and the stats are there for everybody to see. We're not making this up. It's there. And that's why so many children are being sexually abused, are being raped, because that's what it is. If you're between the ages of 10 and 14,000 children. In one province, it was 93,000 children in classrooms being impregnated. What is happening in our schools? And now we're bringing comprehensive sexuality education that was developed by people overseas, not even in South Africa. International Planned Parenthood, an abortion organization, the largest one in America, is behind CSE, and they're bringing that into South Africa. And it doesn't cater for the needs of our children here and the kind of issues that they're grappling with. So, I just don't understand the wisdom. I know there's a lot of money behind it. UNESCO and all kinds of people are behind this, but it's not South African. And I think we need a South African developed curriculum that is going to cater to the needs of our children. I think one of the great distinctions there is also this training for parents, training for teachers, training for parents, so that parents and teachers are all on the same page. They're all playing a role in taking care of our children, because they're being bombarded out there in the schools, online, everywhere, with all these sexual images that is causing devastation. So Graham, one of the things I wanted to speak to you about also is that we put a call out to parents to tell their school governing bodies of their child's school to ask for smart choices. The school governing body, correct me if I'm wrong, has the authority, the right to decide on what programs they can have in their school. So if the parents of children in the school, any particular school, contact the school governing body of their child's school and say, we don't want our child exposed to CSE, but we do believe there's a program called Smart Choices. That's what we want, because it's safe and the content in there is safe. It's been endorsed by a lot of prominent groups. Is that the way to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the activists must be the parents. And when we've looked at this, I think there was a huge outcry when comprehensive sexuality kind of took the front stage a number of months ago, and there was a lot of opposition all of a sudden to it when parents began to realize what was going to happen. This prompted the Department of Education to issue a statement in writing that said that the scripted lesson plans from the Department of Education were not compulsory, and that schools could choose to use an alternate program provided it met all the outcomes of the curriculum statement. And so this is what Dr. Darlene has spent a significant amount of time ensuring that the outcomes that are anticipated in the national curriculum statement are indeed included into the Smart Choices program. So without any fear, parents can recommend the Smart Choices program to their school via the governing body. And I would encourage parents to write letters to the governing body if they're not on that body themselves, and to put pressure on schools, because once this conventional sexuality education starts to unravel in a school, it may be too late. And our children are the only items or possessions that we're ever going to take into eternity with us. And so they are worth the investment of petitioning the school to make sure that they get a wholesome education in the area of sexuality.
Absolutely, I agree with that, Graham. We appealing to parents, educators, please, if you need more information about Smart Choices, you can contact Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer. Information is on your screen right now. Website address, email address. You can go look at some of the summarized versions of the program, the modules. But schools are going to begin ordering their programs in September, October, November. So now is the time to contact your school governing body of your child, and make sure that they order Smart Choices. So Graham Yoko, once again, I want to thank you for coming behind and partnering with Dr. Darlene Edwards-Meyer, getting this information out, all the professional work you do. You guys do incredible work. I visited your place in KZN a few years ago, and we thank God for the kind of values and the education you're putting out there. Your students from the schools that you are associated with usually come out tops because of the care, the individualized attention, the excellence of the education, and of course the values that is so important. So thank you, Graham Yoko. Thank you for talking to us, and I hope to speak to you soon in the future.